so I'm Mr. Freitas, and I'm here with Ms. Christie, and we are going to talk about junior and senior paper stuff, and we are going to assign you your first assignment that will be due the first time that we meet for junior and senior paper. We're going to try to answer some major questions about junior and senior paper, get things kind of out there. You will also know that we will have links to our assignments in the description right down below this video, so you can just click on the link. You can print out the page that you have to have and the schedule that you have to have, and then you'll be able to actually know what's going on where, but we're going to just generally go over things. So as we talk about junior and senior paper, I'm going to just present what we do for junior paper. Ms. Christie's going to clarify the difference with senior paper, and then we're going to be done for the day. So the first thing that I want to talk about here is just the idea of what junior and senior research paper are. The junior paper is meant for kids to be almost like an independent study where they get to pick a topic of their choice and perform research that they're interested in to create an argumentative essay. This is not just an expository essay. It's supposed to have an argument that they try to prove throughout the paper. Now, does that actually change with senior paper?
It doesn't really change at all, Tim. They have the same type of topics that they're able to cover.
So about those topics, though, are there limitations for topics for senior paper?
There are, and that's, again, it's going to sound very similar to what you guys had to do for junior paper as well. We don't want anything that's going to be highly controversial. So the topics that you're hearing about nonstop in the news, things like legalization of marijuana, abortion, gun control, those types of topics are going to be off limits for senior paper as well.
Right. Yeah, and just so the juniors know, those are off limits for you as well. The basic rule of thumb, if it's something that's going to be ruled upon in the Supreme Court right now, I'm probably going to say no. Now, will I give people permission to potentially do something that's considered highly controversial in the global scheme of things? Maybe, but you have to talk to me about it. Ms. Christie, are you okay with that too? Or is that something that you're like, no, don't even bother with that?
I can be flexible on that point as well. Just want you guys to keep in mind that these are topics that we have, I'm speaking for you too here, but that we have definitely seen many, many times before. And with certain topics, it's just really hard to present a nuanced argument at this point. So we're trying to avoid you guys presenting the same argument that everybody else has presented on a given topic. Right.
You find that one person that you agree with, and then you make it, right?
Right.
Another thing too is that when you create this document and when you create this paper, we really want you to look into something of interest that hopefully will even relate to your college major, or something that's way more local, because that means it is more nuanced and you're more invested into it. So once again, if it's going to be in front of the Supreme Court, don't even try to submit it to us well, I guess you could try to submit it to us, but we reserve the right to say no. In the document down below, you will see that we do have a category, though, of topics that you can indeed write about. And as long as your topic fits in this, that's not incredibly highly controversial, like lowering the voting age or lowering the drinking age or legalizing marijuana, chances are we're gonna be okay. Like if you really wanted to talk about what it takes to be the best team captain on a sport, and you wanted to make an argument for that fits under the sports category here, I'll say yes to that. It's not that big of a deal to me. But I really want you guys thinking about creating an argument that's not going to just echo somebody who's potentially, got tons of degrees about this, where you can basically copy and paste their paper. We want authentic ideas and authentic inquiry, because that's what you're going to have to do in college, okay? So now what I'm going to do is, besides the topic, right, let's talk about the general requirements. I'm going to start with junior paper, then I'll have Ms. Christie clarify for senior paper. For junior paper, your paper has to be 7 pages. And what 7 pages means is comfortably on to the 7th page. It has to be halfway down. We are going to round up, okay? If you do not get past halfway onto the 7th page, I am rounding down. That is a 6-page paper. So you need to have at least 6.5 full pages written, and I will round up. That does not include the works cited page. So the works cited page is not part of that 6th page. And so you need to realize that you are writing a full 7 pages here. The other stipulation that we need to have for that basic requirement is that you are going to use 7 sources in your paper. So the best way to remember it is a source per page. One other thing too, though, is that the sources that you can find one of them, or should I say at least one of them, needs to be primary research. So that's research that you're doing on your own that you come up with. And that can be done by doing interviews. That can be done by, interviewing an expert. That can be done by taking care of surveys. That can be done by taking care of surveys, doing interviews, or compiling your own research from other people's research into a graph that you've made yourself. And we'll talk about how to actually do these things later on. But Ms. Christie, do you anticipate having the same, or should I say similar requirements for senior paper? And if they're going to change a little bit, how do they change?
Well, Mr. Freitas, I do in fact anticipate having similar requirements for senior paper, except because you guys are seniors, you are doing more.
15 sources?
That would be wonderful, and if you would like to have 15 sources, I applaud you. However, you are only required to have 10 sources, so could be worse.
Yeah.
Again, 10 sources for what you are now going to be required to have is 10 pages, okay? And same thing as Mr. Freitas was talking about, we're not talking, one line on the 10th page and putting whatever you can to lengthen your conclusion so it gets to that 10 page. No, we want a solid into the middle of the 10th page paper for that. I also would like to put a limit on it. Since it is a longer paper, they really should not be longer than 12 pages. This is not a situation where longer equals better. Tailor your argument so that it does fit within that 10 to 12 pages.
Yeah, and if you actually read up the description for junior paper down below too, it is an 8-page cap on mine as well. So we do cap that. Now, what about primary research? They doing primary research again this year?
They are doing primary research again. So it's 9 sources with at least one of them being a primary source.
Right, so 10 in total. Excellent, yeah. So this is a lot of a very similar process to last year, and we're going to go through the same planning stages as last year for those of you that are seniors, but you're going to have to produce a longer paper, perhaps a more nuanced paper, and do some additional research. Okay, super cool. One other thing I forgot to mention about the basic requirements for junior paper is that for juniors, you have to actually cite your paper both in text and on your works cited page in what's called MLA format. I think that changes for senior paper though, yeah?
It does. You'll be using APA format, which is really something that you may not have had an opportunity to do a whole lot in high school up to this point. But certainly those of you guys that are going into maybe more of the sciences, that is something that you'll be working a lot with in college. So you'll be using APA for your in-text and bibliography.
And one thing just to comment on that super quick is that the reason why we chose to do MLA junior year and APA senior year is because 2 years ago I was asked by an administrator. The administrator said to me, we've got some college kids coming back saying that they wish that they were more familiar with APA formatting, and that's not something that they had an experience with. And then I was asked, is there any way that you can kind of work that into what you do in English? And I was like, well, with junior and senior paper, we might be able to try to do that. And so that's when we decided, let's give every kid an opportunity to work with MLA junior year and APA senior year so that students have seen both, so that that's not going to be a mystery to them when they get to college anymore. Citations won't be a mystery, but the 2 major citation formats won't as well.
And ultimately with the citation formats, if you're nervous at all switching between what you're familiar with MLA to having to do APA, if you can follow the directions, then you can cite correctly.
Yeah.
So
a quick Google search might help, right?
Exactly.
Seriously.
Owl at Purdue.
Right. But we will go over that with the kids as well. So when we talk about the process of junior senior paper, terms 1 and terms 2 are going to be more of, quarters 1 and 2 are going to be more of the planning process of the paper, and then after that, it's going to be more of the drafting process of the paper. And so what that means is that basically the first few terms, if kids put more effort in their planning, the drafting should become much, 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 much easier. And we'll go through creating a prompt, and then we'll go through creating thesis statements, and we'll go through doing our research and vetting our research, and then we'll actually go through outlining it in total as well. We are going to follow the same plan for junior and senior paper, so that this is a pattern that kids are used to, or students are used to, so that that's a little bit less that they have to maintain, or a little less they have to regulate with new things that they have to work with when they move to senior paper, or new things in general for junior paper as well, because they're now writing a college length paper. I remember being a sophomore in college and my longest paper was 4 pages, right? I didn't start getting above 4 until I became a junior, and then all of a sudden I got smoked with like 20 pages. But it's kind of nice to get that experience now. Let's actually just talk a little bit about the grading. Like, how is the grade breakdown going to look this year?
Well, for this year, it's going to be a point system rather than a weighted system. So that's really the main difference, that if you're going from junior paper to senior paper, that's going to look a little bit different for you guys. And honestly, it benefits you overall for us to switch it to this point system. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah. So really what this is going to look like is that your quarter 1, your quarter 2, because there are more assignments that are smaller assignments that are really breaking down that planning process into manageable chunks. There are going to be more grades for that quarter. Your grade will probably be higher in quarters 1 and 2.
Especially because they're worth less points anyway in the grand scheme of things, right? So
Right.
all of our planning grades are going to be worth 15 points apiece no matter what. So if there's a lot of effort that's put in and it actually produces the product like we've modeled it on our lessons that we're going to pass out, then sure enough, kids will most likely score at least an 80 for each one.
Absolutely. And when you get into quarters 3 and 4, obviously we're going more from completion and effort to quality of work.
Right.
So that will be reflected in their score.
And we still will address quality in the planning phases, but it's not going to be as...
Not to the same level.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so when we start doing our rough draft and when we start doing our final draft, our rough draft is going to be worth 100 points in total. Not 100 percentage points, 100 points that go into that final senior and junior paper grade. And then our rough draft, our rough draft is going to be worth 100 points, and then our final draft is going to be worth 50 points. And the reason why we chose to make the final draft worth less than the rough draft is because we really want that rough draft being taken seriously, because the better the rough draft, then the easier it's going to be to produce the final draft. And just a quick little tip, if you score a 90 or above on your rough draft, you do not have to revise your final draft. You can accept that as your grade. And then that 90 will be transposed as your final grade as well for your final draft. And then that will be averaged in with your planning stuff. So there's some incentive there. You know, some strong incentive there.
And just from a schedule, if you don't mind, I
of course.
interject here. So from a scheduling standpoint as well, we're trying to set you up for success, knowing how things tend to turn out at the end of the year. You are not going to want to be pouring all of your efforts and scrambling at the very end of this process come April, come March, when senioritis has set in, when you're getting excited and kind of transitioning mentally into college. We're hoping to wrap this up before all of the exciting things of senior year happen. So,
Right.
Same with juniors.
Right, which actually makes brings up another question, which is when is it due? And as of right now, based on our schedule, assuming that the schedule doesn't change due to whether it be other COVID-19 protocols or anything like that, it will be due probably around early May or late April. I think late April is more of the idea that we're shooting for here. But you can check the schedules down below because we have marked that out. But like I said, due to the fact that schedules might change a little bit, we're going to try to say late April, early May to kind of keep it consistent. We will hammer things down even more so once term 2 actually hits. Okay, so one of the things we have to think about though now is when do you actually meet for junior paper? First of all, or senior paper. You're going to be able to access the link for junior paper or senior paper right down below. And when you do, you're going to see a schedule and it has your name and it has the dates that you need to be in my classroom and it tells you when. Sometimes it's period 7, sometimes it's period 8, sometimes it's lunch. You have to come during the time that is assigned for you. And if you don't come during the time that is assigned for you, then you need to make sure that you tell me why, and it better be a good excuse. You're absent, you have a pink sheet, or it's an emergency. Forgetting and skipping, not acceptable. And if that's the case, you're going to get a detention. All of our assignments are due during the next block B where we present assignments. So the way that junior and senior paper will look is we're going to present your assignment to you all as a group in the Nehemiah Center. And we're going to say, here's what you have to do. And then you have an assigned junior and senior paper day where you come into my room or you come into Ms. Christie's room. And you have to work on that during that day. Now, it doesn't mean you have to start it that day. You should probably start it well before. but you have to show us that you're working on it during that day, and you need to prove that, okay? Because if you have any questions, you have to ask us on that spot. Your assignment will be due the next block B. So, because of that, if we don't receive that assignment, then by the next block B, and you'll be able to turn it in right online, okay, right in the Google Classroom that we have set up for you, then you will get a detention every single day that we do not have that assignment. Not just once. Every day it's late, we will actually be assigning a detention. For junior paper and for senior paper too, if what I understand.
Absolutely, yes. And again, this is to set you up for success, of course.
Yeah.
If you can use those detentions then to make up that work that you're missing, then that gives you that space that you might very well need, and it accomplishes that purpose. But one other thing that I wanted to add about coming for your assigned time, that also gives you that opportunity to save yourself some pain and work in the long run. If you're coming to that class and you're asking us questions, or you're giving us a quick check of what you've been working on, we can, hopefully catch some of the issues early on, rather than you writing a whole draft or completing an entire step and doing something the wrong way.
Right, completely wrong. Because once you leave those small sessions, you have to prove to us that you've worked on what we've assigned to you. Now, you might come in and it's done. If you come into that class period and you prove that it's done, well then fine, work on other homework. But it is a time where you are supposed to be working on junior paper stuff, and you need to prove to us that you have at least done a sufficient amount of that assignment. It doesn't have to be done by the time you leave that day, but you need to show us that you've worked on it, because we need to monitor that this is happening. This is something that has gotten away in the past, and we want to make sure that we can get that in the bud so that you all are set up for success. You have all your planning done by the time February and March come around, and then you can actually just pump out your paper. Okay? So the moral of the story here is, hey, don't miss junior paper or senior paper. Like, right. Honestly, I don't like giving detentions at all, right? Nor do I actually care to have you in my classroom in the morning anyway doing this work. Just come to your assigned time and we're good. But if you have to miss emergencies, pink sheets, and sickness, you have to contact us. You absolutely must. It's extremely important, okay? Just shoot us an email. That's really what it comes down to. The last things that I want to just address here are as follows. The first one is we talked about when the paper was due. It's going to be early May, at the earliest late April, but most likely kind of on the early May side of things. That'll be when the final copy is due. The rough draft will be due in March for both of us here. But who can actually help us at school, Miss Christie? Like, what about, like, if your kids are like, I can't go see Miss Christie right now because she's doing whatever, where can she go? What can she do?
Well, I would say my first piece of advice would be to visit the writing lab, which this year is going to be with
yours truly.
So that is being run during 8th period, is that right?
Yep.
First half?
Yep, and actually it's 8th period all year.
Oh,
so,
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. That does not mean that I cannot help you on your paper. We are here before school. I'm here after school by appointment. So if you have questions, you can definitely go see either of us.
Yep. Yeah, and the same thing goes for juniors, right? For all y'all juniors, if you're just like, man, Miss Christie is so much nicer than Mr. Freitas, which is most likely true, then by all means, shoot her an email and see if you can arrange time with her after school. One thing that's really important, though, is that for all of our help, you should never be leaving a regular class to come and see us. No leaving band, no leaving choir, no leaving math, no leaving history, no leaving any of that. You can only come to see us if you're leaving a study hall, okay? And you'll notice that actually affects what happens with term 2 in scheduling, which is addressed in the documents down below. And we'll also address that closer to semester 2. We'll address that closer to semester 2 for the scheduling of about 20 students. So please note, you cannot miss normally scheduled classes to come and see us during the times like writing lab and whatnot. It has to be a study hall so that we're not pulling you away from other content for junior or senior paper. Something for junior paper, and I'm sure Ms. Christie has something very similar, but if for parents in particular, for me, if you want to monitor what your students are doing, I will give you access to a Dropbox that has all of the file folders and paperwork that your kids are given for junior and senior paper. You can, it's detailed on the link to the document that's down below. And you can just click on the junior paper file, and it will show you the lesson plan that I give your student, the examples that I give your student, what the assignment is, and when it's due, because there will be an example of that. So I do encourage you to access that there. If you have other questions, by all means, feel free to contact me. If you've got questions for senior paper, who should I contact, Ms. Christie?
You should contact me.
Of course, right? And so please note such things. Now, the last thing that we need to do here is this. We need to talk about your assignment that is due on Thursday. What your assignment is going to be is this. The first time that you are scheduled to meet with us, whether it be the week of the 14th or whether it be up until September 24th. So even if you're scheduled to meet with us for the first time after September 24th, this does not matter. Due by September 24th, you must turn in your signed agreement of understanding for junior paper. When you sign this, you are not signing that you actually, and this is on the probably the, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This is probably on the 4th page. You have to sign it, and your parents have to sign it. This is not, hey, I am agreeing to these terms. Okay, there's no choice to agree. This is what the parameters are for the assignment. What this is you understand the terms of the assignment. That you understand that you can access this information when you're not around online. That if you miss things, you're going to get a detention. That we are going, this is serious stuff here, folks, okay? We've already
It's a graduation requirement.
Yeah, that's right. It's a graduation requirement. For junior paper, it's worth half a credit. For senior paper, it's worth a full credit. So we're trying to set you up for success here. And this just makes sure that you guys do agree that you've read this document in full, you've read the schedule, you know that a schedule has been provided for you, and you're going to abide by it. And if you can't, you're going to contact us with the emergency reason as to why. It's reasonable, right? And if you're like, no, that many detentions is unreasonable, well, the easiest way to deal with that, do your work on time. You have 3 weeks to do it almost every time, you know? And show up to our class period and actually do it during that class period. It's going to help, right?
That's what I hear.
So anyway, with that being said, that's basically junior and senior paper in a nutshell. If you have any more questions, please contact Ms. Christie or me, depending on who you have. Don't, once again, I'm junior paper, Ms. Christie senior paper. But Ms. Christie, any other things you want to add here to the end that's going to just wrap up? Like, hey, just make sure that this is the case.
I mean, I just want to encourage you guys to just, throughout the process when you're getting frustrated, just please understand that you're not doing this alone, that past students have accomplished this, have graduated on time, have been incredibly successful. It's going to feel like a lot, of course. It's the longest paper that you guys have written probably up to this point,
Yeah.
right? But you have resources. So
Yeah.
as long as you are not leaving everything to the last minute or just pushing it off to the side, you really would have to work hard to fail at this process.
Right. Right, and honestly, in my 2 years that I've been doing this here, right, I've heard 2 responses to junior paper. I've had kids that have actually done everything to their fullest potential on time, and when the final draft comes around, they're like, this actually has not been a very laborious process. And then I've had other students who have completely neglected what they're supposed to do, and they're in a tizzy consistently because they're always waiting till the last minute. We are not trying to set you up for success. For failure. We are trying to set you up for success. We're not trying to set you up for failure by encouraging you to wait till the last minute. It's not true. You have 3 weeks. Do it in pieces, and you will realize how much easier it is to get this done. And when you have to write your draft, when you have a good outline, and when you have to write your final copy because your draft actually scored pretty high, things are going to be so much easier. And we're going to be there to help you, support you through the process. One last thing is this. A lot of times for junior and senior paper, you don't recognize the benefit of it now, but it's kind of like investment banking. You do it now, and when you get to college and everyone else is like, 3 pages, oh my gosh, how do you make 3 pages be 5 paragraphs, right? You're like, 3 pages, that's it, you know? And students have come back to the school and have consistently said, one of the best things the school had done for them was require junior and senior paper. It didn't mean that it wasn't hard for those students, but for them to have already had that experience now with the guidance that we'll give, it makes it a lot easier. So once again, any questions, comments, and or fashion tips, please direct them towards either Ms. Christie or me. And I think that's all we got. Make sure you download the document down below. Make sure you get that signed, and make sure you have that ready to go by September 24th. You need to take a picture of it signed, or you can sign it with a tablet. I'll take an electronic signature too, as long as it's a signature. Otherwise, print it out, sign it, and take a picture, but it has to be submitted in Google Classroom, which you'll be invited to before the end of the week. So y'all have a great day.
Thank you.